Hi, I'm Doug, and welcome to Doug Reads with Friends. In each episode of this podcast, a friend of mine picks a book, we both read it, and then we sit down and we talk about the book, about ideas, and about our lives. The book brings us together, but the friendship is the point. This podcast exists so I can stay connected to people I care about and make space for the kinds of meaningful conversations we don't always have time for. Thanks for joining us. On today's podcast, I am talking with Tammy Draughon. I've known Tammy for close to 30 years now. We started off as teachers together in North Carolina and have stayed in touch since then. We have a lot in common. We're teachers, we're parents, we're runners, and we have a wonderful conversation. I think you're really going to enjoy this. Tammy is an amazing person, an amazing teacher, an amazing coach, and she's chosen a book at the intersection of a lot of the things that we're both interested in for us to talk about. So thanks for joining us. Thanks for being here. And I hope that you enjoy my conversation with Tammy Draughon about The Longest Race. Early on in my career, I ended up at Enloe High School in Raleigh, North Carolina, where I was an AP U.S. history teacher. And I was thinking about that a couple of years ago when I was filling out a form for a bank or something like that online, and I needed a security answer. And it said, "What's the last name of your favorite teacher from high school?" And I thought, oh, that's interesting. I wonder if I'm the answer for any of my former students. And then I thought, no, because they all had Tammy Draughon. And so their answer is going to be drawn for that question, because I think any student who's had Tammy Draughon as their physics teacher is going to answer that she's their favorite teacher of all time. We only got to teach together for a very short amount of time, both at Enloe High School in the late 90s. But someone who I've been thrilled to keep in touch with and get to know as a mom, as a runner, as a fellow teacher, as a friend, as a coach, and I am so happy to have on the podcast. So Tammy, welcome to Doug Reads with Friends.
Thank you, Doug. I'm really excited to be here. And actually, I would have said the opposite. I would have said everybody loved Mr. Cutchins.
So you've been teaching now for 30 years, something like that?
A long time. I did take a little bit of not a break, but I did what I wanted while my children were little. But yes, I've been teaching for all that time.
Physics, or have you taught other things as well?
When the kids were little, I did a specialty, very small, very private preschool, just really for my kids. So I brought in other kids so I could teach my kids.
That's very different.
It was very different, but actually it's the same thing. So maybe that's an insult to my physics students, or maybe it's an insult to small kids. I don't know, but it's really all the same. So if you can teach high school AP physics, you can teach a really cool preschool program. I just wanted to be my kids' first teacher. That was important to me. So I feel like I gave them a gift, maybe just gave myself a gift. And then as soon as they were not quite so little, I just went back to the classroom.
How is it the same? Because I would think teaching preschool, very small children, and teaching 16, 17-year-olds, one of the toughest classes that kids typically take in high school, I could maybe start guessing at what the overlap is, but I would struggle with it. But you see it very clearly as connected.
I do. For me, why do I love teaching high school physics? I love it because you're helping to facilitate kids learning how to think at a higher level, right? And when you're teaching young children, what you're doing is you're teaching them that their thinking process is important. How they think and view things is important, that they don't have to do things in some sort of canned way. It's the same kind of thinking pattern you would have in high school. Approach it from outside the box. Okay, approach your art from outside the box. Approach reading from outside the box. It's the same kind of thinking pattern. If you can think critically as a small child, you can think critically as an older teenager, and you can develop confidence and about the way you learn by having an environment that fosters that type of learning.
Did you think you always wanted to be a teacher? Did you go into this straight out of college?
I wanted to be a doctor, and I was planning to be a doctor. I really wanted to do neonatology. And I had a college professor at Duke who said, "You would be a really great physics teacher." And I howled with laughter. I thought, absolutely not. That is not what I'm doing in my life. And then he said, "What if we paid for your education and you got a master's degree and tried it. And I said, my first question was, how long would it take me? And he said, 12 months. And I said, sure. Another degree, I'll do that. I'll postpone medical school, and then did that, did a master's degree, stayed and did a master's degree. And honestly, not a joke, not a lie, not anything. 2 weeks into teaching high school AP physics, I fell in love with the kids, found my passion, found my calling, whatever you want to call it. It was exactly where I needed to be and where I felt like I was fulfilling something really important. So I never went to medical school.
I have a few friends who have been classroom teachers for decades. Is either the burnout factor or not having a feeling of kind of moving up in your career, which is important for a lot of people, but not important for everyone. Did you ever consider a move into administration, a move into becoming a principal? What is the fulfillment you get out of the classroom that keeps you there?
I'm a person who commits. So when I commit to the school, I commit to the kids. I really do invest in the students that I teach. It's not just something I say. So I went back into the classroom because I truly love teaching physics. I love the science. I love the physics itself, but I love watching young people love physics and come into my classroom thinking they're not going to, or that it's too hard, and leaving feeling like that they really just accomplished something pretty amazing. That to me is a big deal. So there have been times when I considered teaching in a different environment, teaching at a different level, but I love the relationship that I develop with high school kids by seeing them every day. I just really love the fact that the kids that I work with are still young enough that they don't even know what they're really good at. And I get to be part of that process. I get to be part of the process of saying, you're female and you kick butt in science, or you're male and you kick butt in science. I don't really care either way, but just to say, this is a really hard subject, and look at what you can do now that you've been working really hard for this school year. And I think that's how I got into coaching too, just the whole commitment to kids. I don't want to be an administrator. I never want to be an administrator. I don't want my daily job to be a job. I don't want to show up and do discipline. I don't want to show up and take care of those problems. I want to show up in a classroom of kids who want to be there, who want to learn. That's it.
Okay, so you mentioned coaching. Let's talk about that a bit, because I've known you as a runner and we've bonded over our running for a long time. You're a far better runner than I am.
Okay, but you're an Ironman.
Yeah, okay. But you run Boston every year. You said you commit to stuff. I commit to stuff as well. I just keep going. I'm not fast. I just keep going. But I was not surprised, but didn't see it coming when I don't remember how many years ago, suddenly on social media, you started talking about coaching. And I said, oh, that's really cool. Tammy's going to start coaching. That's excellent. And then all of a sudden, California State Coach of the Year, which has got to place you in one of the top coaches in the country as a cross-country coach and track as well, right? So my goodness, Terry, first, congratulations. That's absolutely amazing. But can you just kind of talk about the move into coaching, how you got started and how that changes your relationship with your students?
Yeah, it was during COVID or coming out of COVID. The previous coach sent an email saying they were moving and would be stepping down. And I just had.
So this is only 5 or 6
moments.
years ago. You had not started coaching before 5 or 6 years. That's amazing.
Being a coach, running is my happy place. Running is my personal, myself happy place. So I never really considered coaching, but I just had the strongest feeling that these kids need me. And I actually got an email from some kids. I'd taught quite a few of the good runners. And I got an email that said, would you please throw your name in the hat for the coaching job? We need somebody who really understands running. So I did. And they said, yes, we want you to be the face of this program. So I started as the head cross-country coach for boys and girls, and we've been very successful. I've been very grateful. I've been very blessed. And it's not because I woke up one day and said I need to be a coach. It's because I woke up one day and said I need to support the kids that I care about on this campus, and teaching is my priority, but I can also do the coaching. And what I love about it is I get to coach kids who would never be in my classroom. So I work with a full, I don't know, the whole gamut of kids on a campus. Kids who would be in AP Physics, kids who wouldn't be in AP Physics. I have both levels who run on the team.
Have you worked with a coach much previously, or are you self-coached as a runner?
I'm self-coached, which is probably interesting or not to people, but I love the whole process of learning about running. So I've been a student of running forever, for years and years and years, and not just on the surface level of should the workouts look like and what should the pacing be, not just the physical nuts and bolts, but the whole package. The nutrition and the pre and the post and the how do you support yourself with, and then how do you do all of that while you're a professional and a parent, and how do you make that all work? So I feel like that as a coach, I coach the whole athlete. I don't just coach them for the 2 hours that they're in practice. It's all about how do you eat correctly? How do you sleep correctly? How do you recover? How do you do the pre and the post? And so I feel like that what kids get from the coaching is that they get skills that they can use lifelong. So they leave the program as really great athletes, but athletes who can be great athletes their whole lives.
Yeah. I feel like that gets into what I wanted to ask next, which is kind of more about your coaching philosophy. Do you have a way to define that? I mean, you've talked about being inclusive of all the kids in the school. You've talked about it being holistic in nature. Are there other pieces that are really important to you?
I think my philosophy of coaching is that if you have a positive coach who understands the sport and who truly looks for and finds your potential and points that out to you, who takes the time to have those conversations and tell you what you're capable of doing. I believe my coaching philosophy is pretty much like my teaching philosophy. We're going to do this hard thing. We're going to do this hard thing well. And I'm going to be a positive source of information and encouragement. And I will be there consistently 100% of the time for you as you work through figuring this out.
Can you talk a little bit about gender dynamics of being a coach of both boys and girls? And this is, I mean, starting to think a little bit about the book that we read together that you chose. But what is it like coaching high school boys versus high school girls? What do you think that being a woman in coaching means, and how does that affect your approach to coaching?
Well, it's really interesting because I'm a female, I'm a teacher, so that puts me in a category where there are lots of women, right? But I'm a physics teacher and I'm an AP physics teacher. So that's a little different category for teaching. And I've never had anyone treat me differently or less than in the physics realm. I've always been very respected for my ability to teach and my knowledge of physics. And maybe that's unusual. I don't know that all women have that experience, but that was my experience. And then walking into the coaching role, I don't know. I was fearless, but I think I was fearless because I was clueless about this dynamic a little bit. And I had some rude awakenings to begin with. There have been some interesting experiences where I have seen that being female is not thought of as the correct person to be a head coach of a program, especially when you're head coaching boys. So I've had some interesting and not always fun interactions, but I've had also wonderful interactions. And all of those, my interactions with other females have always been fantastic. My interactions with other male coaches, if I'm being honest, have been 90% phenomenal and 10% a little bit on the interesting side. I will say that at first, people just sort of ignored me. Like, here's this female coach that's taking over this program, and the program can't possibly continue to thrive. You know, it was almost like everybody was having a funeral for Great Oak High School cross country. Like, goodbye, they're gone. They won't do anything else. That's nice that she took over. She has no experience. The end. But I like that challenge too. Kind of like, oh, please underestimate me. This is going to be super, super fun. And so I just smile and I'm nice. And, you know, I'm the nice little head female coach who just says, we can be friends until the starting line. It was hard. It was rough for me to figure it out. But coaching boys is really so much fun. High school boys are just super fun creatures. Boys usually don't have a filter and they just say whatever is in their head, which I appreciate. You get complete honesty from them. I've had times when my boys' team is excelling and doing better than my girls' team. Right now, my girls' team is outperforming the boys' team. And so the differences are interesting to me. And I don't want to stereotype high school boys and girls, but high school boys are super fun, no filter. They work their butts off. I've never had them have trouble with the fact that they have a female coach. I think part of it is I'm there to work and I'm there to work hard and I don't pull any punches. I don't have any problem interacting with them. So I'm not afraid of them. So they tend to do well. And the girls tend to be more serious. The girls have a filter. They have a filter but they're super focused. And right now, my girls are the best that I've ever had. These are the best girls that I've ever coached. So right now I have girls that will light it up on the track this season. They're going to do amazing things. We came in 4th in Alabama in a phenomenal competition in December. And this was a national field. So these girls are really going places. So I like them both. I like the boys. I like the girls. And at this point, I'm taken seriously as a coach. I'm taken seriously as a coach of boys. I'm taken seriously as a coach of girls. For that, I'm really grateful. It took a little bit to get there, but I think we're good.
How has coaching impacted your own running? Have you changed as a runner because of coaching others?
Well, there's nothing like a little pressure that your team knows you're running a race. And I like my running to be a little bit private. And you kind of lose that whenever you are the coach. So sometimes I don't even tell them that I'm going to race somewhere because it's just a little bit more pressure. I do think that it's funny because sometimes I'll be running. I actually have moments where if I'm running Boston, I will give myself the pep talk that I give my runners. Or I will say, okay, come on, Tammy, pull it together. You know what you would tell your kids right now. This is ridiculous. Like, do what you're supposed to do. That's been fun. That's been really great. And so I've run some of the fastest times I've run in marathons, even at my age, as I'm coaching. It's been really hard to train. So some of my mornings honestly, I was getting up at 4 a.m., running, making sure I could get the run in because it's hard to do that. My school days with coaching are usually 12 to 14-hour days. And then trying to put my running in on top of that is really tricky. There have been some days that I would get up at 3 a.m. just so I could get the run in and then be at a track meet that was going to be 12 hours that day on a Saturday or something. So it's really tough, but I get it done.
Is marathon your main distance that you're running now?
Marathon is my favorite. Yeah.
Okay. And how many marathons a year are you running at this point?
Well, I've dealt with a couple of injuries in the last 2 years. Last year, unfortunately, I only ran one. I like to run two, but this year I'm running Boston and I'm hoping I'll also run another fall marathon. I just don't know which one. The other problem is that when you coach, you have to be careful about when you race. They have to come at the right time in a season for coaching. I have taken times when I've gone to race that aren't ideal for the team just because I needed to get that particular major in or whatever. But most of the time I try to work around that.
And so do you use Boston every year to qualify for Boston the next year? Are you one of those runners?
Yeah. So far for me, qualifying, I hate to say this out loud because some runner is going to throw something at me. It's not super hard for me to, sorry, I know. I just have to be able to get it done. Like last year at Boston was my slowest Boston in a long time. And I was recovering from a torn meniscus. So I went into Boston not particularly well trained and could still run a Boston qualifying time.
Do you happen to remember, I was about to say the last time we saw one another, but it is not truly the last time we saw one another. The last time I saw you.
No. wait, you told me this. I got a message.
It was at Boston 2024.
Yes.
I was about 1,200 meters from the finish line. I have a video of you, and I'm screaming your name, Tammy Draughon, Tammy Draughon, and you just motor right on by. I mean, you've got 1,200 meters left. You are locked in that finish line mode, and you just went right past me. But I was very happy to see you.
Tammy Draughon! Tammy Draughon! Tammy Draughon! Go Tammy!
Tammy, I want to ask, and we can talk about this or not, but I know you ran Boston the year of the bombing, and if my recollection is correct, you had some medical issues. You were in the medical tent, and you were in the medical tent when the bombs went off. And I just remember kind of hearing you talk about that a little bit on social media afterwards. I'm sure that was a very difficult event. If you don't want to talk about it, we don't have to talk about it.
Well, I'm totally fine now.
How do you carry that with you? How do you think about that? I mean, I imagine that was a traumatic day for you.
It really was. And it's easy for me to talk about now, but I've had years to process that, which honestly, it took years. I had a little bit of trouble that year. My nutrition was off, and I was still figuring out my nutrition in marathons. Sometimes I would hit it really great, and then sometimes I just struggled. And you know this from endurance running, but the race really starts at mile 20. And that's not cliche. It really does. I hit 20 and 21 and 22, and I just had this overwhelming feeling that I just needed to stop. I've never stopped. I don't stop. I'm not a stop runner. I go and I run hard, and I try to run even splits. And so it's really strange. And I had this very overwhelming feeling, Tammy, you can't stop. And I thought, this is weird. Why am I having this conversation in my own head right now? I don't stop. But then the thought was very clear to me. You need to show your kids they can do hard things. And it was a little bit of a wake up, like, this is important for whatever reason. This is important right this minute. Like, you cannot stop. You have to do hard things. I finished the race, but as soon as I finished the race and I stopped running, my body temperature plummeted and I just went down on the ground immediately, just crumpled. So they wrapped me up in Mylar blankets. I looked like a hot dog. I didn't realize this, but they worked with me for like 20 minutes. So I had finished long before the bombs went off, but I couldn't walk. I couldn't get my body temperature up. So they got me into the medical tent, which is right at the finish line. And I was on a bed right at the door to the medical tent when the first bomb went off. And I just had a really very calm feeling. That was a bomb, and you're okay, and Kevin's okay. And Kevin was on the way to the finish line. Then not long after that, the second bomb went off, and I just had that feeling again. It's a bomb. You're okay. Kevin's okay. I even told the nurses who were working on me that was a bomb. Like, that came out of my mouth. I don't know why they didn't arrest me. And then, but I was in the medical tent when everything happened, and I still couldn't walk. The medical tent was eerily quiet. I remember hearing, we've just become emergency triage. And then somebody said the word stat. And then the next thing I know, there are people in front of me, very close to me, who don't have all of their limbs and who are very silent. On TV, you just saw noise and you saw smoke, and it was chaotic and very loud. It wasn't like that in the medical tent. In the medical tent, it was very much a group of people in shock and very injured, with medical professionals taking good care of them. Some doctor had said, you need to go to the hospital. My body temperature was really low. And I was like, are you kidding me? You've got people to worry about that aren't me right now. And all of a sudden, I just felt okay. So I actually jumped off the table, ducked out the tent just so I escaped. And then I got out into complete chaos outside, but some really nice Boston lady could tell I was some lost runner. And she said, I'll get you to the family meeting area. She walked with me to the family meeting area. I found my husband, and then they cut all communication to Boston. We got one call in to our kids' elementary school, and then that was it. But I went back the next year, and we took our kids so they could see Boston's a really cool place. And I had dreams for a year that somebody was chasing me in a marathon. And I would turn around with my water bottle. So the water bottle I carry when I run, at the time, this was a scary dream, but now it's kind of silly. So I would turn around and I would attack the person with my water bottle in the dream every time. And then after a year, I stopped having the dream and my kids fell in love with Boston and I've kept running ever since.
There's two other things that have kind of one has come up very clearly that I wanted to ask about, and that's your family. And then the other thing I think is very closely tied to that, which I know is important to you, is your faith as well. Can you kind of start tying these together of how running and coaching and being a mom and then your faith all kind of intertwine together and how you think about those as a unified whole?
I love my kids. I have 4 kids. They are all grown. So I have 2 in college. One actually is graduating this year after 3 years with a double major. 2 are married. One's a wildlife biologist, one's a professional photographer. And then I have one child graduating this year with a double major in journalism and vocal performance. I know that's a fun combination. And then our youngest is a freshman and is doing computer science, maybe computer engineering. So they're all fantastic people. They're all doing really cool things. And my husband, Kevin, and I are empty nesters, which is really strange. All the
How's
kids are
that going?
gone.
That's such a change, right?
It's super weird. And
Right.
I think I like it. I like it when they come home. I think for me, when you put it all together, I would say that I like for people to know they can do hard things. And for me, that you can do hard things is accompanied by my faith and faith that you can do the hard thing and you can do the hard good thing. You can do the just plain hard thing and have some support to get through it or to do it well. And I like for the people around me, obviously separation of church and state. So my students and my athletes don't get that perspective from me, but I hope that they see someone who's grounded and who believes what she says, and that because I believe that you can do hard things, that maybe you can believe that you can do hard things. And that's what I hope for my kids. That's what I hope for my students. That's what I hope for my athletes, that we really can do incredibly hard things. And if we're not perfect at it, that's okay. We'll get better at it as we go.
Well, let's start talking about this book. Tell us what book you chose and why.
So this book, The Longest Race by Kara Goucher. So the why is interesting because I've had so many experiences coaching and running. I like to hear what other people's experiences are with running. And I feel very strongly about the responsibility that coaches have with their athletes. It's the same kind of responsibility that a teacher has with students, but to another level. If there's a power differential that's really important for coaches to understand their responsibility in. And Kara Goucher is just she's a cool human. The other thing is she runs a podcast with Des Linden, and Des Linden is one of my favorite people. She actually won Boston one of the years that I was running it. But Des and Kara do a podcast that's called Nobody Asked Us. And they talk about all sorts of things in the running community and the running world. And I love the fact that they're 2 female marathon runners who are giving their opinion in a sports world. And that's not always what you see. So honestly, I read her book just because of who she is and the success she had in the sport with marathoning, and because I've seen her be just a great person.
For people who don't know the book, can you give a little bit of kind of a blurb or a sense of what this book is about? Because it's not just a memoir of a elite woman runner. It's called The Longest Race for a reason.
It is about her experiences with the Nike Oregon Project. So specifically being coached by Alberto Salazar. She talks about her whole life of running in the book. You do get the history of where she started as a young child and then how she ran through high school and college and then how she ended up at Nike, how she left Nike. You get all of her ups and downs. What I really love about Kara is that she's being completely genuine. And if you listen to her podcast, you hear her speak, she's one of those people that I don't think she would lie very well. She's She's very genuine. She's very honest. And I think her story is important because she gives a voice to female athletes. She gives a voice to women, regardless of whether they're an athlete or not. It really applies to all women. If you have ever found yourself in a power differential where you have no voice or where your voice is silenced, then this book applies to you. And it helps you to see who you can be. Maybe you've lost your voice, and I think you can find your voice again.
If you asked me before I read this book, who's Kara Goucher, I would have been like, American elite runner, but I don't pay attention to the elite runners. So this was very interesting for me. And I agree with you that she's very honest. And one of the things that I appreciated was that there were parts where she has to apologize to people later in the book, where she goes back and she's very self-reflective about what she did and how she acted and taking responsibility for her actions. But also very clearly, as well she should, laying blame and being very honest about the Nike Oregon Project, about Salazar's awful abuse of athletes and breaking and flaunting of rules. I thought it was an important book and one that I enjoyed on multiple levels, and I thought was really important. It felt to me, I'm not a horror movie guy, but it felt a little bit to me like a horror movie, right? Like you read the back cover, you know, okay, this is not going to be a happy story, just a happy story, a happy memoir of an elite runner. That there's some terrible stuff that's going to happen here, and that slow descent into, like, you know, it's coming as the reader. She doesn't know it's coming as the athlete, and the kind of excusing, well, that was weird, but you know, he's older, or that's weird. It's Alberto Salazar, like he's got to know what he's doing, or that's bad. Do we really want to get out of this? You know, it would be difficult to extricate ourselves from this. And then gradual descent. It almost felt cult-like at times as well. It felt like both kind of a cult and a horror movie combined. And it becomes very, very difficult to extricate themselves because her husband, Adam, is also in this project as well. So the two of them are trying to navigate it, but she's navigating it with the gender dynamics and the sexual abuse in ways that he doesn't have to.
I knew the story before I read the book, so I kind of dreaded it while I was reading the book because you know it's coming, but I didn't know exactly how it would be portrayed. The whole process of her finding her voice in different ways too. I did love the fact that she took responsibility in every situation, but also she didn't find her voice with her own husband for a long time. And just the process of going through the abuse and what it took. When she said, I froze. When she describes her reaction as that she froze. And I thought that was an important passage for women to read. I think we have one picture of how we would behave in a certain situation. And I don't think she ever thought I might freeze. If something bad happens, I'll freeze. And I don't think we think that. But I agreed with her in the sense that I wouldn't have seen myself as freezing. But I 100% could understand why she was going through what she was going through and why she was reacting the way she was reacting.
And I think also what's tied up with that then is that this is her profession, right? I have a coach that I work with. I love my coach. He's absolutely wonderful. You're a coach. You have a very close relationship with your students, but your students could walk away and, you know, they decide they want to spend more time on theater or their parents need them to take a job or something like that. Fine. I decide I'm getting old and my knees hurt and I don't want to do this anymore. Fine. She decides she doesn't want to work with the person who's abusing her. She's lost her profession. That adds this entire other layer that becomes extremely difficult for her to get out of. She lands in a wonderful place. And I love the parts towards the end of the book where she's working with women-owned businesses. She was talking about there's no top women executives at Nike, right? There's nobody that I feel like I can go to who's going to understand me, who's going to listen. All the men she's going to are dismissing it. They've got too much money involved. This kind of halo effect around Alberto Salazar, but she has to find a way out because she has to be able to keep her job, even though the workplace has become abusive.
So her book brings publicity to all of those issues. And people really didn't think about it, right? So her contract was being reduced. She's had a baby. She's not allowed to recover well. I believe if you listen to what's happening with her injuries and everything, once she had the baby, when she had Colt, my feeling is she dealt with those injuries off and on from that point forward, mostly because she was never even given a chance to recover. My feeling is she was stuck on many levels because if she didn't run, she didn't get paid, but also she's female, so she doesn't get paid because she's had a baby. All people see is the glitzy professional runner part. They don't see I'm really a prisoner to the money that has to come in from this contract.
Did you read this book more as a coach or more as a runner?
Both. I read this book as a woman. I read this book as a runner. I read this book as a coach. So I felt like, I don't know, I was so angry with Alberto Salazar.
Could you not be?
But I do know the impact that I have as a coach on these teenagers that I coach. Now, she was an adult going in, but she was a young adult. She had just gone from college. You work at this age group of person, right? They're amazing and intelligent and strong people, but they're still really young. He can't even be positive with her. So she runs in Beijing, right? She comes in 10th in what was this at the time was the second fastest 10,000 meter race for the women. She runs this huge PR, still comes in 10th, and he basically tells her she stinks. I can't imagine when my runners finish a race, whether they feel like they did really well or they did poorly. I need 3 things that went well. I need 3 positives from you right now before you tell me what was bad, before you tell me how it stank. I want to know what went well. And sometimes they have to dig really hard to find those things, but I'm always there giving them the positive, and then we work on the constructive. So I'm reading this book and thinking, how much of an idiot are you that you're working with these professional athletes and you haven't figured out that the mental is just as important as the physical, and you can't even give her that? It was infuriating. My sense is he was a terrible coach. Imagine what these amazing athletes could have done had they been with a really good coach. Kara Goucher was amazing and doing these amazing things, even in a situation where she wasn't being given the tools or the treatment to excel. So what would she have done?
Kudos to her for not asking that. It could come across as very egotistical in some ways for her to be like, well, look what I did with this guy. What could I have done if I had had a Tammy Draughon on my side who would have
No.
who would have believed in me and who would have told me when I finished and ran a massive PR in Beijing that I was amazing and she believed in me and she was going to help me reach even greater heights. Who knows what might have happened? Do you think about trying to coach at a level outside of high school?
No, that's definitely outside my depth. I do have people that I really admire who coach on the college level, but I don't admire them just because of their coaching. It's how they work with their athletes. She is not a member of my faith, but she coaches at BYU, Diljit Taylor. She's incredible. My girls team, they know I love her. Actually, we were at a meet at Stanford and Diljit Taylor goes by me with her BYU girls team and I turn into absolute fangirl. So I'm just like, I'm booking it. My runners are all like, what the heck is going on with coach? And so I go and I get the BYU girls and their coach. And I'm sure the girls are all like, oh, she wants to talk to us. You know, they're great runners. They're fantastic runners. But I was like, girls, you're amazing. But I want to talk to your coach. She's phenomenal. But what she's phenomenal about is she was an amazing athlete. She's an amazing collegiate coach. She's much better at what she does than I do. But she has the philosophy that I have, that your athletes and who they are as people is really important. And she just pours into her athletes so they know that she cares about their performance, but she cares about them as people and not just as runners. It's really fun to watch her girls interact with her. It's fun when they mic her up during a race, that sort of thing. So no, I'm not qualified to coach at some other level. I love what I do with the high school kids because I love high school kids. I teach high school because I love high school kids. College kids are great, but it's a different place of development. And I love the development that's happening whenever I'm teaching or coaching.
Tammy, we need to start to wrap up. One of the things that I ask guests to think about is thinking about the book that we've read, this conversation, and where and when we might. It's been a long time, well, a few years since I saw you, a long time since we really got to interact in this way. Thinking about this book, thinking about our relationship, what are your thoughts on when and where we might get to meet up next?
I think we should do a race. I think that would be really fun.
Okay. All right, Tammy, you ready for this?
Yeah.
I'm 5 weeks out from a BQ attempt.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So where are you doing it?
So I'm trying to qualify as a 55-year-old male. So 3:30 is the time I have to hit. Realistically, I've got to go 3:25. Now
Yeah,
I
you
know
do.
that this is pedestrian for many people. My PR is a 3:21, which I ran in 1993 before I even met you when I was
Wow.
22 years old. So I'm trying to lose 4 minutes over 33 years. So I'm registered for Rotterdam in April. We're recording this in early March. I'm in Abu Dhabi. Airspace is closed here right now because of what's happening regionally with
Oh.
Iran. I hope when this podcast comes out a few months from now, everything is quite well settled. I had this realization yesterday. I may not be able to get out. I may not be able to get to Rotterdam to be able to run this race. And the reason I want to do this is specifically next year is my younger daughter will be a senior at Wellesley next year.
Yay.
And so, if I can run Wellesley and go through the Wellesley Scream Tunnel during her senior year, that would be a dream come true for me. This is it. This is the big attempt to try to get to Boston. If I can't do it now, I don't know that I'll ever be able to do it. But maybe Boston 2027, we can meet up.
Well, I think that's the best plan ever because I do have goals of maybe wanting to do Ironman at some point. That means I probably can't do that while I'm coaching. It's too much time.
It's a lot.
It sounds like we're running similar paces, so we could actually run part of that race together. That'd be really fun.
That would be the best. That would be absolutely the best. Tammy, thank you so much for this. This was a delight. Such an interesting conversation. So glad we got to catch up. I hope all of our old late 90s Enloe kids who were in AP US History with me and AP Physics with you are watching. They're all now like in their early 40s and their parents and having their own
Okay, you're
lives
not
as
supposed
well.
to say that. That makes us both feel very old.
But this has been wonderful. So thank you so much for coming on. And Tammy, thank you for being my friend.
It has been an absolute pleasure, Doug. My whole family knew. I've been looking forward to this for weeks. So thank you for asking me.
Wow, that was a fun conversation. I really enjoyed that. A difficult book in many ways to read emotionally, but I really appreciate Tammy choosing that and for the conversation that we had. We have not been able to have a conversation like that for a very, very long time. We're, I think, big fans of one another, but not someone who I normally get to talk to. And I'm really grateful for Tammy for taking the time to reconnect. One thing I didn't get to ask Tammy about that I think lots of people know Tammy for is that for many, many, many years, her family has made the best Christmas cards. They are themed. They put a tremendous amount of time and energy and effort into it with costumes and poses. Always, always, always have looked forward to getting Tammy's family Christmas cards. Tammy, thanks again for coming on the podcast. Music for Doug Reads with Friends provided by my friend, Erin Caffel. Erin is a very talented artist and musician. Please check out her music on Spotify. And thank you, Erin, for providing your music for this podcast. You can follow Doug Reads with Friends on Facebook, on TikTok, on Instagram. I post clips from each of our episodes. If you have any questions or comments, please reach out to me at dougreadswithfriends@gmail.com. That's it for today's episode of Doug Reads with Friends. Here's my only request. I'd like to ask you to send this episode to one person, someone who would love this book, someone you've been meaning to reconnect with. Books bring us together. Conversations keep us there. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being my friend.